This video is sponsored by me. Read my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death. Link in the description. Greetings, fellow mortals. Alright, to start this out, I would like to say that I was wrong about The Last of Us show, or at least the first few episodes. I'll do a full breakdown and happily eat my crow if the series pulls this all off. And it might just do that, because so far almost everything has been perfect. I only have a few minor nitpicks with some of the random things they threw in there that's a little bit different than the game. Mostly stuff that has kind of video game logic in an actual TV show. I think that's just Naughty Dog not understanding the differences of the medium though. Overall though, HBO Last of Us has blown away my expectations. I couldn't have been more off with my predictions. But to be fair, the lead up to the show was kind of awful. In interviews, they insulted gaming as a genre, dismissed changes in the lore, and told the main actress not to play the game for some reason. It was all weird and it reminded me of Paramount Halo. And just because I'm proud of that joke I made in the previous video, I'm bringing it back now. Never go full Paramount Halo.
No, 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 no!
Oddly enough, it just turned out that the showrunners are terrible at interviews. They should really just learn to say, hey, this is going to be a completely faithful adaptation of the game. If you like the story in The Last of Us, you'll like this show. That is literally all they needed to do instead of acting like elite pretentious jerks. But in retrospect, I guess that I shouldn't have anticipated too many changes to the story. After all, they consider it to be the greatest video game story ever told. Now that is a giant leap. I love the Last of Us story. If you've watched my previous videos, I've always praised that original tale. I don't particularly have many complaints until we get to part 2. Joel and Ellie are fantastic and fully realized characters. Their journey is emotional and gripping. I love everything about their trek when it comes to a storytelling aspect. It's not a complicated tale, but it doesn't need to be. It followed the importance ranking of the 3 aspects of writing. Characters should always be more important than the setting and the plot. But calling it the single greatest video game story ever told is a leap that I'm not willing to take. As I always said, it's a great story in a decent video game. If you really like The Last of Us combat, great. But I don't know many people that praise anything about the gameplay other than the graphics. At best, it's tense and fun. At worst, it's the barrier to get to the next piece of the story. And as the show demonstrated, it wasn't a story that needed to be a video game. It could easily be transferred into any medium. That's why the show is a success. They're following the outline from the game to the smallest detail.
Welcome back, Captain Obvious.
Yes, I am!
But I think that's the problem. How can something be the best video game story if it doesn't need to be a video game? A while ago, I made a Ghost of Tsushima video praising the game for creating a journey where I naturally altered my playstyle based on Jin's current mindset in the story. Now that video is rough, I was still learning the basics of YouTube at the time, but I still stand by it. Ghost of Tsushima is a tale that would lose some of its impact with me if it was changed to a show or a movie. Of course, they might be arguing that The Last of Us is the best story to ever come from video games, but that's hard to agree with as well. Even if we stay in the stealth action genre, the Metal Gear Solid series exists. If someone chose any of those games as their favorite story in video games, I really couldn't argue with them. My personal favorite is Metal Gear Solid 3, just for the ending and how you choose to play affects your experience in the game. Of course, there's also a point in the column of a video game story needing to incorporate gameplay to be the best tale in the medium. So why don't I list some of my favorite game stories? And if you have a suggestion that I never thought of, then leave a comment. I may have forgotten about it or never got to play it. Sorry, I don't have a limitless amount of time. I'm trying to make YouTube videos and write books here. I barely manage to fit everything I need to do in a day, so sue me.
Better Call Saul.
I already used the action stealth genre, so let's stick with the zombie genre. Is there a better zombie story about a girl and an adopted dad in a video game? Well, actually yes. I would say that Telltale's Walking Dead is actually even better than The Last of Us. It's a point and click adventure game, and some aspects of how impactful the emotion are does come from the sense of choice in the game. Now, the player's actual ability to control the outcome of the plot is minimal to actually non-existent, but there is a sense of weight as you're playing it. That's something that could be hurt if the tale of Lee and Clementine were changed to another form of entertainment. And that raises an interesting point. Does a game having choices that matter make it a better tale for interactive storytelling? Besides a choose-your-own-adventure book and a few Netflix specials, there aren't many examples of choice in entertainment, and none of these outside examples can compare to something like Mass Effect 2. That's a game with dozens of different endings based on the people that you choose to save. Your preparations throughout the game decide who lives and who dies. Now you could argue that Mass Effect 3 diminishes everything, but I think the accomplishment hasn't been matched even by other games with multiple endings. The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 come to mind. Those are fully realized worlds with interesting characters and many decisions which affect the outcome of the story. Of course, The Witcher 3's combat is simply good and doesn't add to the plot. Usually the dialogue decisions are better. The same could be said for Cyberpunk. Of course, I still can't play Cyberpunk without mods to make it better, so maybe that one should get thrown out. But those are just Western games. There are plenty of video games from Japan that could be considered the best stories ever put into the genre. Chrono Trigger is a game that actually uses the leveling mechanic as a way to decide when you can face the final boss. You can try to beat the big bad at any point. In fact, you can get multiple different endings, manipulate dozens of events, and use the New Game Plus mechanic to make vastly different experiences. And all that is basically from one genre. No one can argue how influential and superb Silent Hill 2 is, and that's a story where gameplay feels necessary. Without the desperate scramble to survive and how your actions affect the outcome of the story, it wouldn't be as powerful as it is. Trying to survive in the misty hellscape of the town is necessary for the experience, not to mention how much is left up to interpretation. A lot of show, not tell.
Oh my God. I get it.
Okay, so I think that I've nailed it down. The perfect video game needs a few things. 1, if it's not a video game, it affects the tale negatively. 2, it needs to have a sense of choice and weight, even if it doesn't have any actual choice in it. 3, it needs to be impactful and emotional. 4, the surrounding world needs to add to the story to the point that removing the ability to explore diminishes the experience. Well, that makes me think of one game above the rest: Shadow of the Colossus. If you don't know, Shadow of the Colossus is a video game where the main character, Wander, makes a deal with a dark force doorman to resurrect the maiden Mono. We have little context about what happened and what Wander's relationship is with Mono. All we know is that he cares about her enough to kill 16 giant beasts for Dorman. Thus begins his journey across a barren land to find the Colossi, strike them down, and reunite with his lover / dear friend / sister, because we don't know, I'm just guessing here. Besides riding to the Colossi on your horse Argo, the gameplay revolves on scaling the towering ancient beasts, which make you feel like a tiny baby ant. Every time you slay one of them, Wander grows corrupted. A sense of melancholy rolls over you at all times. These colossi weren't doing anything wrong. They were peaceful creatures that you decided to kill for your own selfish reasons. Each kill has a sense of weight and choice, especially if you return to an area and see the corpses that you left in your wake.
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
While there isn't any real choice in the game, it feels like there is because you decide to continue playing. That's on you. If you stop, you can imagine Wander leaving because he decides that it's not worth it. The emotions and ambiance seep into every corner of the game. Without the boss fights, the impact of the tragedy wouldn't have the same weight. In every way, I think that Shadow of the Colossus needs to be a video game in order to succeed to its full potential. That's why I think it's the best video game story. But there are many games that can compete with it. I haven't even gotten into the Yakuza series, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, the hundreds of other JRPGs, the God of War series as a whole, the influential Earthbound, or the indie darling Undertale/Deltarune, the thousands of other amazing indie games. There are so many to cover, and having Shadow of the Colossus as the best video game story is a matter of opinion. You are completely allowed to have a different favorite story in gaming, but I think that we can all agree on one thing. If you think The Last of Us is the best story in gaming, maybe you haven't played enough video games.
And that's the way I like it.
But what do you think? Am I completely off base here? Do you think The Last of Us is the best story in video games? What's your favorite story in a video game? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would really help me out. Also, please remember that I just released my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death, book 1 in the Written in Stone series, link in the description, and my second book, Above Heaven, will be released in May 2023. I hope that you will check them out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.